So everybody's familiar now with the idea of a cinematic universe. Well, back in the 90s, that wasn't such a big thing as it is now. It was kind of cool. I was shooting the show Jag, and I was working with Donald P. Belisario. You gotta understand, I loved this guy. The classic cigar-chomping Marine script writing director, producer. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna shoot this, and we're gonna shoot that, and we're gonna get out of here. He's just a great guy, and he writes all these great stories, and I had been a huge fan of his from when I watched Magnum P.I. Magnum P.I. is like one of my all-time favorite shows. So when I got the job on Jag, I was really, really excited. So he creates Jag, and he gets Jag going. He would later create NCIS, which you might have heard of. I'm not sure. I think it's a small independent show. But one of the first shows that he wrote after he created Jag, he wrote a show called First Monday about the Supreme Court. Now, this happens all the time in Hollywood. There was another show that was called... Oh my God, I'm getting so old. It was called The Court, and it starred Sally Field. But Don had written this show about the Supreme Court, and he got all of these great people to be in it. But the actor that he got to play the head of the Supreme Court was James Garner. Now, James Garner, who starred in The Rockford Files and Maverick, and he starred in one of my favorite movies of all time, The Great Escape, and he played the scrounger, the forger, the guy who would find stuff. He was the American. And James Garner was like, oh, he was so cool. And so he was on this show First Monday as the Supreme Court Justice, and he was the most kind man I think I've ever encountered. The deal when you're on a TV show and you're the big stars, you get a big trailer and they treat you really special because A, you're the reason the show's happening because you're a big star, especially like James Garner. You get a big trailer because you spend a lot of time there and you've got to look nice and you've got to be in wardrobe. And when they're ready for you, they call you to set. But from the time they call you to set to the time you get to set, everyone's waiting. And it can be a real drag on production if the star of the show is kind of that person that takes their time and doesn't really try to get to set quickly. Well, James Garner was the absolute epitome of professional. I don't know if he ever went into his trailer. I saw James Garner in his chair on set, which you hardly ever see for a big time star like him or a star of a TV show where they're waiting for the crew and the crew is not waiting for them. And I was so impressed by this that I, who was starring in Jag, and I think it was about our 5th season, every chance I got, I was back in my trailer. I was watching movies or I was going over my script, whatever it was. I wasn't sitting by the set. I was in my air-conditioned trailer. So after I saw this, I started waiting on set because I thought that was a pretty amazing thing. But I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Garner, and Don came over and he introduced me to him. Don was directing the pilot, and I came over and I said, Mr. Garner, I have to really tell you what a big fan I am. And he goes, well, I have to tell you that I'm a big fan of yours as well. Now, I could not get over this. I don't still to this day believe that he's ever seen any of my work, but it was just so special to see someone who had no reason to be the way that he was, to be so professional, to be on the set, to be so kind, and to make me feel like I was somebody when I'm really just another part of, a smaller subset of what we were doing. It was really, really cool, and I'll never forget it.